Hello Foundry GMs. This video is a tutorial for showing why and how and where to use the Scene Packer module. First, let's talk about the setup of my particular Foundry. I'm hosting Foundry from a web-based service called The Forge. The Forge allows all my players to connect to my games without me having to host them on my own computer and without me having to perform any setup on my own router. I have multiple game worlds shown here, but for the purposes of this video, we'll focus on the top two: Source, where I'll be creating scenes and adding monsters and journal entries, and Destination, where I'll be importing what I've created in the Source game world. Both my Source and Destination game worlds have only 3 modules enabled: the Library Scene Packer, LibWrapper, and my Shared Compendium. The Shared Compendium is a module that you create from within the Forge hosting service that serves as a storage area for actors, monsters, items, journal entries, macros, playlists, role tables, and scenes that you might want to share between different game worlds, like my Source and my Destination world. Before showing you why Scene Packer is such an important module, I'm going to create and configure my settings so that Scene Packer context menu is enabled both in my Source and Destination worlds. And it's simply just this one button click right here, this one radio button. So I'm here in my Source world, and I'm going to create a very, very simple scene. I'm going to grab a map, add one monster, and add one journal entry to that scene. So here's my background image. And I've got a journal entry here that I've created previously. I'll drag in there. Looks like this. It's got some bogus data in it. And I've got a whole bunch of baddies from D&D Beyond that I've used with the D&D Beyond importer. I put them into that shared compendium that Forge offers. We'll take an adult copper dragon, slap it down right there. Click on it. Looks good. It's listed in my actors. I've got the journal listed in my journals. I've got my scene listed here under this folder. Then I'm going to go ahead and right-click on the parent folder, export this to my compendium. Note that I'll need to have my compendium unlocked to make this work. If I look over here at the compendium, I can see I've got my map. And now I'll go over to the journal entries that are shared, and I'll look to make sure that my SP entry is located there. It is. And it may be a little redundant since I originally grabbed the copper dragon from the shared compendium, but there we go. There's the adult shared copper dragon. Now I'm going to go over here and launch my Destination world, and I'm going to try to import the scene that I just created in the Source world. Note this particular world has the exact same shared compendium that still has the scene that I've created here, along with the adult copper dragon, along with the journal. Here's my map. I'm going to go ahead and import this. It will ask me to go ahead and create the scene with all the particulars. And I will activate this scene. And although these two items and the background image are still here, if I click on them, it has absolutely no idea where these are located. It can't find the adult copper dragon sheet. It gives me an error. It has absolutely no idea where my journal entry is. And so what I would have to do to make this work is to go back into the journal entry and find the SP entry. I'd have to drag it back out here. I'd have to remove this unknown one. And likewise with the adult copper dragon, I would delete it here. I would go back into my shared journal entry. I'd have to drag it out. And you can imagine having to do this for dozens, hundreds of either monsters or journal entries would be very, very difficult. So that lack of default functionality in Foundry and the lack of the ability to retain items with the shared compendium and Forge is the reason for why Scene Packer is needed. So a little bit of cleanup here. I will go ahead and remove these items from my compendium after I unlock it. So that's gone from the compendium. Let's go over here. This is still in my destination world. I'm going to go ahead and delete all of this. Going back to my source world now, and I'm going to go ahead and do some cleanup over there as well. Everything I have just created, I'm going to make sure is removed so that when I show you how to use Scene Packer, we'll be starting with a fresh slate. So removing that folder, removing this map. Everything's blank there. I can remove this adult copper dragon here. The journal entry I'm actually going to leave because I don't feel like recreating that. What else? We've already removed everything from the scenes, right? So that's gone. So now I should be ready to show you how to use Scene Packer. The first thing I'm going to do is stop my server completely in the Forge. This is so that I can upload a new module with the Scene Packer in it. Pardon me, with the scaffolding for my new scene in it. Next step is to open up a separate browser tab and navigate to the GitHub page for the Scene Packer module. About a third of the way down, it has a section titled, Where Do I Start? And there's a link here that will lead you to the module generator. That link will open up a new browser tab or a new browser window, and you can select New Module. There are a number of required fields here. I'll go ahead and just call this My Test Scene. You don't need underscores, I'm just putting them in there. Fill out a description. And you'll need to include your name. There's a whole bunch of options here. You don't have to have all of the packs here. So for instance, if I wasn't doing any macros, I could go ahead and deselect that. And when it created this new compendium pack, that wouldn't be listed. But just as a default, I go ahead and leave everything here as is. I'm going to go ahead and download the module. Just go ahead and save it on your computer. Keeping track of which particular folder it's in. Mine happens to just be downloads. I'm back here at the Forge game configuration screen. I'm going to go ahead and select Summon Import Wizard. Once I do that, it'll ask me if I want to grab some files locally or if I want to grab a zip file. The file that we just happened to download was a zip file. Go ahead and browse for it. Again, this is where you'll need to keep track. Note that I don't have to open or modify this zip file at all. Once I filled it out online and downloaded it, it has all the information that I need inside there. Go ahead and analyze. It'll go ahead and read the contents. The Forge recognizes this as a compendium or a module, and I can go ahead and click Import Selection. And then Finish, and then Close. At this point, you can go ahead and launch your Foundry again. And once again, I'm going to select my source world. And then I'm going to click Manage Modules. And I'm going to go ahead and look for the My Test Scene and enable it. The reason that we stopped the server itself was so that it could pick up this new module. If you didn't stop it, you probably wouldn't see this here. Go ahead and save. It will restart. When it first activates, the module will ask you if you want to import. In this case, I have nothing I've created, so there's 0 entries here. I can either import everything, I can choose individual scenes, that you'll see how that works later, or I can go ahead and just close this and move on. I'll go ahead and do that. In order to prepare for packing the scene, I'm going to go ahead and over to Compendiums. You can see that the shared compendium through Forge is still here with actors and monsters and everything else. But in addition, I've now got this other compendium called my_test_scene. It was the one that we created from the web page. And there are actors, items, journal entries, playlist, roll tables, and scenes here as well. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I unlock the scenes and also the actors and also the journal entries, because those are the 3 things that I will be adding to my scene. I'm going to go ahead and create this scene just like I did before with a parent folder. I'll call this test again. And then I'll call this my scene. I'll go ahead and grab the background image just like I did before. Okay, so that's on there. Again, the scene is embedded within the test folder. That's on there. Now we'll go ahead and add various items. Here's the journal entry from before. And similar to the very start of this video, I can double click on it. It shows my entry there. Everything's fine. I'll go into one of my compendiums here and grab myself a nice big old copper dragon. There we go. Double click on that. I can see all of its attributes. Everything is fine there. So at this point, I'm going to look for the Scene Packer journal entry, because there's some instructions in there to help us with our next set of steps. You can see it's numbered 1 through 7 here. I've already done step number 1. I did that when I first installed the library Scene Packer. Number 2, I built the scene as normal. I've already gone ahead and done that. Number 3, I'm going to export these to my compendiums as normal. So this one is a little bit confusing if you're working within the Forge setting. So when it says my compendiums, you might think, oh, well, my shared compendiums, right? I've got these shared ones that I created through the Forge. But that's not quite what this means. What this means is the My Test Scene compendium that I downloaded as a zip file and then uploaded into this world. So that's what it's referring to. So we're going to go ahead and move both the scene, the copper dragon, and the journal entry all to their respective modules here. So here's the scene. Go ahead and move it there. And then we've got this copper dragon. We'll go ahead and move that to the My Test Scene actors. And again, if you get an error here, it's probably because you have not unlocked your compendium. Finally, I've got this Scene Packer journal entry. Journal entry, My Test Scene. Drag that in there. Okay, so now we've satisfied step 3. I'm exporting them to my compendiums. Step 4 involves running a script. You can see it highlighted here. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and open a debugger window. On most browsers, this can be opened by pressing F12 on the keyboard. Note here that I'm using Firefox and my debugger window is at the bottom of the screen. However, on Chrome, it could be somewhere off to the side. It may not be black in color. It may be white depending on your browser. Also, it may have multiple tabs. I'm going to make sure that I'm on the console tab. And then I'll go ahead and clear out the existing entries. On Firefox, this is a trash can. It may be a button that says clear entry on some other browsers. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on the relink compendium journal entries. Again, it will ask you which module. If you have multiple modules unlocked, you may have to go through a list of them. You can leave save changes unchecked. I'll go ahead and click unlink. Okay, so it's going to go through and offer some debug. What I'm looking for here is any notifications of an error. In Firefox, this would be a yellow line for a warning, a red line for an error. I don't see any of those here, so we're okay. If you do find some of those, it could be because you might have something on your scene that is not in the compendium that you downloaded as a zip and then uploaded into your world. Step 5 is just a right-click operation. Choose Pack Scene Data. I can go ahead and close this debugger now once I'm done with that step. Now I can see Pack Scene Data. It tells me that it's writing my tokens and writing my journals to whatever I called this, which is my scene. Step number 6 is also a right-click. It's asking you to export your scene to a compendium. In this case, I'm going to use this top-level folder that I created to do that. Again, if you have multiple items unlocked like I do, you'll have to go ahead and navigate to the one that you've downloaded as a zip. In this case, mine's called My Test Scene. I'm going to go ahead and leave the Merge by Name clicked. What that is supposed to be for is if you have done this multiple times and you want to overwrite, that's what that check mark stands for. In my case, this is the first time, so it won't really matter, but that's what it's there for. It will go ahead and give you some debug information as it is packing up the scene. Let you know that it's linking all sorts of different stuff and that it is done. Step number 7 is where I can run a script to give me some information about what I've just packed up. So if I go ahead and click on this, it will prompt me to say, do you want to go ahead and run a report off of every single scene in your entire world? Or do you want to go ahead and select just one module and do that? In my case, it wouldn't matter, but assuming that your world has bunches and bunches of maps and scenes, you probably just want to go the module route here. Again, depending on what you've got unlocked in your compendiums, you may have multiple selections here. I'm going to go to the My Test Scene because that's what I called it. This particular dialog asks you to select any additional compendiums that you may have installed. So, for instance, if you're using levels, or if you're using the combat utility belt, or there's something about your scene that involves a dependency on other modules, you would go ahead and select it here. That way, the scene packer can say, all right, are you sure that you have all the dependencies that you need? In my case, I've only got very few modules enabled, so it's not a big deal. I'll go through here. It'll go ahead and do some evaluation. It's showing me this asset report here, telling me about the actors. For instance, there's my Copper Dragon, and it says, okay, in terms of what I've just packed up, where did I find the image for this? Well, it found the image for that in my folder structure here. And same thing, where did it find the token image? That's where it found the token image. Journals, in this case, don't have any images because all I'd put was text in there. The scenes itself, here's the background image. Okay. It'll tell me where that map is at, etc. If I needed to debug something, say at my destination when I copied it over, I didn't see everything there and I thought I might have missed something, that's what this copy JSON to clipboard is. You can copy a textual representation of everything you're looking at here, showing all of the dependencies that you had, and you can go through there in code-like fashion and figure out, all right, I think I missed this one in this folder. So I typically don't run this show asset report every time. It's really only for debug. I'm going to go back into my destination world now, and there will be just a couple that I need to do in terms of getting everything set up. Just like my source world, I'll need to go ahead and select the module which I've created. That was that zip file that I'd be downloaded. Mine's called my test scene. I'll go ahead and save those module settings, and it will pull those in. Now, this pop-up message is a little bit different than we had before. It's recognizing 3 entities. So one of the entities is the background scene with the map. The other entity is that big old copper dragon that takes up 3/4 of the map. And the final entry is the journal, which I have created. So it's telling you not how many scenes you have, but how many items have been packed into various scenes. So, assuming that you pulled over 10 scenes, this could be a whole bunch of entries here. The other option is I can choose individual scenes. For the purposes of what we're doing here, again, I'm doing this in the most manual way possible, so I'm going to click Close. I'll go over here to my compendiums and my scenes, and here is the My Test scene. I'll go ahead and right-click, and I'll import that entry. It'll ask me again how it wants me to place that background image. And then I'll navigate to that actual scene. It's going to give me some debug messages telling me that it's pulling in stuff. In this case, my copper dragon and my actual journal entry. And it'll tell me that it's relinking and doing all that sort of stuff as well. Taking a look at the scene itself, we have a nice adult copper dragon sitting here. If I double click on it, I see its data. And we also have my very basic journal entry. Double click on it, it has the data. There are no more errors here. Everything has been nicely delivered to my destination world. Although my scene is not nicely packed in a folder here anymore, the scene packer has made it so that my actors have a parent folder, and also my journal entries have a parent folder. So this has already worked much better than the default Foundry, Forge, import, export, and various scenes. But we're going to go ahead and take it a step further. I'm back in my source world again, and I'm going to go ahead and add more to this existing scene. Let's go ahead and add another monster or two. Scrolling through here, I will choose the dandelion. Not sure where this dandelion comes from. I'm guessing it's one of the modules in the Feywild, but you know what? It looks good. We're putting it right there. The steps to pack this new change up are exactly the same as before. I'll just go ahead and move through them in the same fashion, making sure to add this new fella to the existing compendium, and making sure to go through the checklist like I did before, just to make sure that I haven't missed anything. I'll try that again with the debugger, or pardon me, the console. Okay, no errors here. That looks good. Then I'll right-click and pack that scene data again. Note over here, it says it's packing 2 tokens to that scene. That should be my additional freakish dandelion monster. Going to go ahead and export again, this time merging by name, just like I did before. making sure to select the correct destination. It's got the 2 tokens there. That's good to see. And again, I'm going to skip the asset report. If you were to run it, you'd see that there's a couple additional entries for where to find the Dandelion's image and where to find the Dandelion's token image. Over in the destination world, I'm going to go ahead and remove the existing scene. And then I'm going to go over to my compendium and pull this scene back in. And you can see here, everything shows up. It's pulling in the new actors. It's pulling in the journal notes. And so as I take a look here, my Copper Dragon is still intact. My journal is still intact. And the Dandelion is still intact. So that's how you both create a packed scene and update a packed scene. So now that we discussed the how and the why of Scene Packer, you might be wondering, where would you need to use all of this scene packing? Well, if we take a look at the game worlds I have listed here, you can see that I have much more than just a source and a destination. I have multiple worlds for multiple versions of the exact same game that I've hosted on different dates. Each one of these represents a different set of players at my virtual gaming table, and as each group progresses through different adventures and on different character levels, I make tweaks to scenes and changes to notes, and I modify or swap out monsters and items based on what I've seen different players do at the gaming table. And each time I make a change in one world, I need to go back to all the others and make those exact same changes so that when new and different gaming group begins the exact same adventure, they can benefit from all the previous changes I've had with the previous groups. And if it were just a journal entry here or a monster edit there, it might not be so much of an issue, but I am constantly modifying and improving multiple elements of multiple scenes for one gaming group and having to copy those back to changes in 3 or 4 other games. And I'm spending a whole bunch of hours doing that. What's more, I've been watching all sorts of videos from BaileyWiki and Pyram King, and when I see what they've done, I go ahead and usually download new modules with new features, and then I go back and change my existing scenes to incorporate even more of their ideas and designs. So for me, Scene Packer makes all of those edits a whole lot faster. Hopefully it will for you also. Before ending this video, I'd like to take a moment to thank Blair, otherwise known as Sneet, for his efforts in creating and maintaining Scene Packer, and also for his assistance and patience in helping me to understand how to use this module. Thanks for watching, and happy gaming!